A little bit. I think Jack Dorsey, their CEO, was actually fairly concise in what he said, but he fundamentally admitted that they were not only slow to react, but there have been a lot of mistakes made. And there's a very deep concern, I think, in the Valley in general that both Twitter and Facebook have failed up to this point, especially to deal with things like fake news and the election meddling and privacy issues. And even though they're making these statements, I'm not sure anybody's really convinced that they've solved this problem.
And Tim, these hearings really started as a way to look into the election meddling concerns. But now, as we heard from the one Republican there in that taped package, there are concerns about U.S. political bias, if you will. I mean, we've heard President Trump talk about this, now suggestions that Jeff Sessions could be looking more closely at tech companies. Do you think investors here are concerned about this as well?
Well, I think it's an issue that there is a bit concerned. But remember, there are a couple of issues going. I mean, first of all, there were two different sessions today. One was from the Senate, and the senators were actually more focused on election meddling, whereas the congressional segment in the afternoon was more on this bias. In the context of the bias, they both Sandberg and Dorsey tried to explain that yes, there were mistakes, but there are some algorithms that deal with this issue, that put, for example, more people that might be talking about something from the mid left get more activity because there's more than what would be coming from the mid right. And as a result, this is a bit more complex, but it has page rankings and all these other things that drive that kind of information. The big question that they have to respond to is, are they blocking conservative content? And I don't believe that that's the case intentionally. And Dorsey said that, but he said there have been mistakes. And I believe Sandberg reiterated to some degree that there have been mistakes. The really important part about what happened today, though, is that both senators and the congressional groups basically said to these leaders, you got to get your act together or we're going to potentially do something to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
I find this all really interesting because covering national election campaigns for several years out of Washington, I mean, you had the executive chairman of Google riding on Barack Obama's election campaign trail with him, riding on the plane at one point. I mean, it's no secret that these companies out of Silicon Valley are leaning one way more than another. Do you think that kind of hubris is over?
Well, I got to tell you, I've been covering Silicon Valley since 1981, and it was the exact opposite. Most of the old line guys, the Intel CEOs and others, were all on the Republican conservative side. And they, in the early days of tech, leaned towards that side. This newer crop and younger side tend to be more to the middle and middle left. I think that is going to be a consistent concern because at least here in Silicon Valley, that is what I see happening. But at the same time, these companies, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or Google, have to deal with the fact that content across the board has to be open and they can't block it.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.